First, you must realize that you have no idea before you can know the idea. We scan across all the frequencies if we want to learn anything new. Let us begin.
What has physics done for me lately? Second more, the equation E is equal mc squared. We have now acquired a fateful power to alter and to destroy nature. That's like when you're in physics and you go to Dreamworld saying, this is a physics excursion. Science, what is it all about? The whole of human history all falls in the dust of one stroke of a nail file. You can't really get to grips with evolution unless you realise what an enormous amount of time our own planet is only a tiny part of the vast cosmic tapestry, a starry fabric of worlds yet untold. You are tuned into what can only be described as the best radio station on this blue dot we call Earth. It is, of course, 4ZZZ, be it on your conventional wireless radio by tuning into the classic frequency of 102.1 FM, digital devices such as DAB or smart speaker, listening via the Community Radio Plus app while you're at the gym, hey Gabe, or streaming us live from our sensational website at 4ZZZ.org. And of course, you can always listen back to us or any 4ZZZ show for that matter using the ingenious on-demand feature also found at that URL. We also now have a weekly podcast of the show for your listening pleasure, curated by Toby, a condensed version of the show without the music, which my mum prefers, and has just searched for our show name, which is, of course, No Idea, spelt with a K. And joining me this week, without delay, good morning. Well, I'm not meant to say good morning. Hello, Gabe.
Hello at an undisclosed time, Max.
Yes.
We're being trained to be good podcasters.
We are.
So we can't say the word. We can't say the M word.
What date it is or anything, really.
Anything. Nothing. You get none of it. If you're tuning in to get to fix up your clock's stuff. Because we're saying none of it.
That's it.
We're well drilled.
We're time free.
That's it.
Yeah.
Max, coming up, yes. I have a story that it's blowing my mind and it's blowing biologists' minds. I'm so excited about it. It's about these ants that have... The end of this story, Max, is that they've had to create a new word to describe a new form of how animals can reproduce.
Oh, good. Okay.
They've it's a textbook rewrite.
Yes.
Well, addition. Not a rewrite. Addition for a new form of reproduction.
That's right. This is
Scrap the whole thing.
It's like quantum physics. Yeah, that's right. We found another small particle. Oh, my God. Anyway, yeah.
Yes, so we've got to get into that. And I've got some stuff as well out of Flinders University. They've done some research into impacts of mobile phone or smartphone bans in schools.
Yes.
So I'll get into those studies
okay. How are they going to do
well
that?
later on.
Gen Alpha, mate, they just got it all over us, so they'll get around it. Anyway, and I've got something about your favourite passion of photography. So, yeah, some counterintuitive sort of science that some researchers from Brown University have worked out using an algorithm, of course. You ready for it? We've got Issy in the room.
Hello.
The show is No Idea, your weekly dose of science on everyone's favourite station, 4ZZZ, and it's time for a bit of this. We got Gabe too. You know it. Hit us up, Gabe.
Max, some scientists...
Your mic wasn't on, Gabe, sorry.
Wow. Insult me, turn my mic off. Yeah. You know what? Stuff it. You're not getting this science.
Okay, we'll play another song then.
Scientists in France have discovered ants that lay eggs that went on to hatch into two different species.
Whoa.
Okay.
Check that out.
Yeah. A double yoker.
This is beyond a double yoker, it's a double species, Max. They've had to propose a new name for this type of reproduction. That's how cool this is.
Yeah.
Like I said, Max, this is the stuff that will change textbooks in bio. You know, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It completely changes our understanding of how species works too. Published in Nature, so the most prestigious journal in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of institutions tied to this one, but it was led by researchers out of Université de Montpellier. Got a QS ranking?
Is that in Paris? Or France.
It's in France.
Yeah.
France. Let's go 431.
333.
Did you guess 431, Issy?
Yeah.
It's 430.
I swear I didn't look.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Maybe they used to be 431 last year and you just didn't know or something. Yeah. So to understand the gravity of what these researchers have done, I'm just going to recap what we expect to see in these ants, and then we can get into how wildly different what they found is. So many ants have 3 different castes that they fall into. So there's the queens, right, that we know, the breeders, basically. There's worker ants, and then there's the males. So the queens of the workers are females, and then the males, they're mainly just to reproduce with the queens. That's how they usually split it up. But what that means is, because the workers have nothing to do with the reproduction, they have nothing to do with the passing on of genes, they're kind of cut out of the evolutionary loop in a lot of ant species. So they don't, because they're not passing on any genetic information. That's the driver of evolution, right? The genetic info that can survive is the one that gets passed on. But these workers don't pass on any genes. And what that means is that some ants, harvester ants in particular, have done this really weird thing where they've cut out their genes from the worker ants, and what they'll do is they'll fertilize. If their eggs get fertilized, they'll become more queens and disperse. If they don't get fertilized, they'll become they'll become males,
Just males,
of their own species. Breeding males. So there's no workers getting produced there. What they do with the workers is the queens reproduce with a different species of ant and create a hybrid. And that's the worker ant.
Really? Okay.
So it's not part of the genetic loop of the species. It's just a worker ant supplying the queens and the males.
That's it.
And it's a weird hybrid between 2 species.
Yeah.
That's one of the, one of the species.
Does that make it a superior worker ant then, do you think?
Well, you'd assume over time that it would evolve to sort of, they take the genetic info or have the genetic info that the worker ant is the best worker ant it can be. They do, they're different functionally and they look different. The queens are often bigger, can fly. The males are sort of never leave the nest, often can't even feed. They'll just hatch, reproduce and then die. And so the worker ants have to do all of the other stuff. Most of the ants you see are the worker ants. So,
that's right.
All of that's the worker ants.
And maintenance.
Maintenance, so the nest building, the food gathering, the defense, the taking care of the eggs and larvae. That's all the worker ants. So these are the weird hybrids that don't get their genetic information passed on. They're often a hybrid between the queen and a different species of ant in the same genus usually. So they went and looked at a bunch of 390 ants from 5 different species of harvester ants across Europe. And they were trying to see, this going on out in the field.
Did they put QR codes on them? Or?
And one of the ant species... No QR codes on these ants, Max. Just genetic work. And so what they found is they confirmed what they thought, at first, what they thought was normal, right? So these Iberian harvester ants, one of the species, had workers that were first-generation hybrids with another species of harvester ant. That's what we'd expect to see, right? They are... The Iberian Peninsula, by the way, is Spain and Portugal. That's where these ants are, Iberian harvester ants. So that bit of Europe that spits off above the northwest coast of Africa, Spain and Portugal. And so what they found is that their worker ants are a hybrid with another type of harvester ant. That's normal. What's not normal is that other species of harvester ant doesn't exist for over 1,000 kilometres around where these Iberian harvester ants were. It's not there. There's no colonies of it occurring naturally, which means one of 2 things. It means either the queens of these Iberian harvester ants can travel over 1,000 kilometres, which seems far-fetched for a small, pretty normal-looking ant, or they've worked out some genetic stuffery that has gotten around the need to have the other species there. And so what they did after that, because they were bamboozled. They got a bunch of them and put them into the lab. And we're going to watch every moment of your life. We're going to watch you lay the eggs. We're going to watch you reproduce. We're going to watch you develop. We're going to figure out how you're making hybrids with another species that doesn't exist around you.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it, Max. Ant porn. And so what they found is that the eggs that these queens were laying in the lab hatched into two different species. It hatched into their species and the other species that they hybridize with from the eggs of these queens. That's crazy. That is like a biologically female human giving birth to a human and a Neanderthal.
Yes.
Like, it's not really like that because it's ant reproduction and it's very different to mammal reproduction. But that's the context, right? That's what you got to picture in your head. These are so different from each other, and it's giving birth to them or birthing the eggs that hatch into these two different species.
Yeah, distinct groups. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It's crazy. They look weird too. They're like almost hairless, which the species themselves aren't. Like they're kind of weird little clones that they're making. But it's crazy. What they think is happening is this phenomenon called sperm parasitism. When females of one species use sperm of the males of another species to stimulate asexual reproduction or even partially incorporate the male's genome into their offspring. And then over time, they just cut out the middleman and start making their own supply of these males cloned from the other species that hatch into the colony. So they've got the sperm supply, like the genes from the sperm stored, and they're just able to use that on demand to create hybrids with this other species. Like they're storing the DNA from the males of another species inside them, the queens, and using that to produce hybrids whenever they need them. On demand worker ants of another species without having to do anything with the other species. And Max, these aren't even like, it's not a case of, oh, maybe they're just really the same species and we don't really understand it. No, these things have a last common ancestor about 6 million years ago. They're not related. They're so far distinct from each other. And they're still able to reproduce in some regard, like they're able to combine their genes to create these hybrids. But they're not the same thing. 6 million years of evolutionary history splitting them, and they're able to store the male DNA and use that to create hybrids of themselves and that other species. The word they're calling it is Zenoparous, Max. This is the new form of reproduction. So typically there are 3 forms of reproduction that we talk about for animals. There's viviparous, which is where you develop inside the parent's body and have given birth to as live offspring. So that's mammals, right, as the classic example.
Yep.
There's oviparous, where animals produce and lay eggs where the young further develop outside of the parent's body. So that's something like a sea turtle or lizards or birds. And then there's oviviparous, which is animals that produce eggs that hatch within the body of the parent, like some snakes and rattlesnakes. So those are the 3 that we have, right? You give birth to live young, you give birth to an egg that hatches, or you have an egg internally, it hatches, and you birth it that way. This is a new one, which is
number 4.
Zenoparous, meaning the queens produce individuals of another species as an inherent part of their life cycle. That's wild.
Ever had a one-night stand so bad that you steal their DNA for millions of years and repeat? That's crazy.
It's crazy. They're not really sure how this has developed. They've got lots of ideas, but they're not sure how this actually comes into being. How does this even start? And then how long has it been going on that they have this million years or millions of years of evolutionary history splitting them, and they've still got this stuff stored. The ants aren't anywhere near them. They're over 1,000 kilometers away. They're passing down. It seems like they're passing down this genetic information of the other species, somehow storing it internally, and then using it to create these hybrid workers. That's crazy. What is that?
That's great.
So that's what I got for you, Max.
It really
Some
fits
ants
the weird science this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, just move on.
We're going to hear, speaking about moving up, part 2. Now, this research was led by engineers from a Brown University in the US, QS ranking. Gabe, I'll do easy.
Brown. I think Brown's high. I think it's 25 or something.
Let's go 40. 69. It is. Fair enough.
Counterintuitively, the researchers showed that with the help of a clever algorithm, a camera in motion can produce higher resolution images than a camera completely still.
Hey?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. The new image processing technique could enable gigapixel quality images from ordinary camera hardware, as well as sharper imaging for scientific and archival photography.
Max,
Yes.
every device I own is telling me storage issues, not enough space, clean up your space.
Yes,
Would
right.
you like to clean this up?
The gigapixel, yeah, he thinks
I don't need gigapixels.
Yeah.
The study was recently presented at the International Conference on Computational Photography. Now, digital cameras produce images by averaging the intensity of light over an array of pixels. This sets a resolution limit. Details smaller than a single pixel get smeared out across the pixel rather than precisely located within it. And that causes subpixel details to be blurred. Now, the technique developed by Brown University uses camera motion to enhance subpixel resolution. When the camera moves, small points of light leave tracks that cross multiple pixels. The team's algorithm uses those tracks as extra information to pinpoint exactly where fine details must have been, reconstructing them on a finer grid. The result is a super resolution image with detail sharper than the original. And for the study, the researchers tested the technique by mounting on a conventional camera to a moving stage, which enabled them to test their techniques in various movement scenarios. In some cases, the team took multiple photos while moving the camera slightly between exposures, then used their algorithm to construct a single image from the multiple shots captured by the camera between movements. In other cases, the team moved the camera during each exposure and reconstructed a high-resolution image from a single motion blurred shot. In both cases, the team showed that the algorithm could leverage the camera motion to produce images with far higher resolution than would be possible without the motion, which seems really counterintuitive.
No,
Yeah.
not buying this.
The researchers reckon there's plenty of potential applications for their technique. A moving stage setup like the one used for the experiments could be used for super resolution archival photography of artworks or artifacts. The technique could also be useful for photography from moving aircraft. The team also sees a possibility for the algorithm to one day run on commercially available cameras like yours, Gabe. The team plans to continue developing their technique and look for industry partners to make it available to the public in the coming years.
Good stuff. I mean, it makes sense that you'd have so much information, a moving image that that you're having to do all this work on. Doesn't necessarily mean it will look better to our eye. Like resolution, you can have a very high resolution image and it can still be taken in pitch black, and it's,
With the high
it's
ISO.
still like the ISO is still grainy as everything. High resolution doesn't necessarily mean it looks like an incredible image, but that'd be. I can see where they're getting at now with the ideas of putting it on a plane or something like that that's surveying below.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Cool. And we're going to hear from our friendly neighbourhood marine scientist. Are you ready for this? This is about fish recognition.
All right, so quick question. Have you guys ever been recognised by a wild animal?
Recognised by a wild animal.
Recognised.
I don't get out much. So.
I think maybe with like a friendly neighborhood crow. Or something
I'm
like
thinking
that. I don't know.
magpies, similar
Yeah.
thing.
Like birds
Yeah.
and stuff? Okay. I'm going to tell a quick story here because this is something that happened to me. I wouldn't call it a wild animal, but for those who don't know, I used to work at SeaWorld, and one of the things I used to have to do was go before the shows and we would like sell things. And so I would just be retail, but then there were also like some food vendors, right? And my favorite thing was going to the dolphin show because I'd go like 15, 20 minutes beforehand and just set up, and I'd just get to watch the dolphins, which was great. This is not a comment on the ethics of dolphin containment. I was 14. But it is a comment on one dolphin who I love to this day. It used to come up and see me every time I came in. There's one dolphin. I recognise it because it had scars from a boat strike on its back.
Right.
And one time I got there and there was a new guy on the popcorn machine. And it was not a very nice guy. He was just like swearing and yelling and blah, blah, blah. And my dolphin didn't come up to see me. So I was just kind of chilling, doing nothing. I was like bored. And then all of a sudden I saw it's like circling at the bottom of the tank. And I was like, what? That's weird. He's like having a hard day or something. And then all of a sudden he comes up to the side and makes this huge wave and drenches all of us.
Beautiful.
All of us standing by the edge of the pool. And this popcorn guy just loses his mind because he was setting up his thing and all of his stock got drenched, right? So he has no popcorn left. And he was like, oh my God, that dolphin, it did it again. Not again. And I was like, what do you mean again? And he was like, every time I'm here, that dolphin sweats me, like he ruins my stock. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I asked other people, and fair enough, this dolphin had it out for this popcorn guy.
That's
like it
right.
recognized him as a person. It wasn't any other popcorn people we had, just this one guy. The dolphin would purposefully go after him and ruin his stock and get him to leave. And I don't know what he did to annoy this dolphin, but it did definitely recognize him as a person singularly. And so that is what we're talking about today, because it's been found out that fish can recognize people as well. So for years, scientific divers at a research station in the Mediterranean Sea had this problem where at some point in every field season, the fish would start following them and stealing food that were intended as experimental rewards, so wild fish. And intriguingly, the wild fish appeared to recognize the specific diver who was the one who carried the food previously, and choosing to follow only them, ignoring the other divers. So they were like, oh, well, that's weird. Let's investigate. So previous research on fish recognition was available, but limited. It was just on archer fish in the lab. So they knew that some fish had done it, but in lab settings, not natural settings. So essentially, they did this 8 meters underwater at a research site, and they had this they did it in 2 phases. So the first was to see if the fish could recognize a single diver. Her name was Katinka Sola. And she started by wearing a bright red vest and feeding the fish while swimming 50 meters. So pretty identifiable in her big red vest. But then over time, she removed her visual cues. So first went the vest, then she hid the food, and then she ended up only feeding the fish that followed her the entire 50 meters that she swam. So if they followed her the entire way, she would feed them. And they found that there were some fish fish obviously learnt her over this period. And they found that there were some fish who were more willingly engaged in what they described as the training sessions. They described them, by the way, as volunteers, because they were like the fish would just be there. Of dozens of fish species inhabiting the station, 2 species of sea bream in particular were very willingly engaged in the training. Their known best use these are the sort of fish you see for sale as food a lot. They're a very common food fish around the world. But they surprised the scientists by their, quote, curiosity and willingness to learn. Not only that, but 2 particular individuals were recognised as being particularly enthusiastic. Sola said that once she entered the water, it was a matter of seconds before she could see them swimming towards her, seemingly coming out of nowhere. Yeah. And she named them. One was called Bernie, with 2 shiny silver scales on the back, and Alfie, who had a nip out of his tail fin. So she named these 2 little fish. And after 12 days of training, roughly 20 fish were reliably following her on training swims. And she could recognise several of them from physical traits, which was pretty exciting. And so with that, they entered the second stage, which was seeing if the fish could distinguish her from another diver. Right? So now they've known this human, let's see if they know this human from another human. So they were accompanied by another diver whose gear differed slightly from hers, like in colourful parts of the wetsuit and fins. And both divers started at the same point and then swam in different directions. On the first day, the fish followed both divers equally. You could see that she said it was really obvious they were kind of struggling to decide who to chase.
Yes,
they didn't know. They were like, oh my God, now there's 2 of them. Jesus Christ. But the other diver never fed the fish who followed him. So literally the second day, the number of fish following Sola increased significantly. They were like, oh, not him. This guy, not her. Like, it's the ones on the left now.
Yeah.
And when they repeated the trials, did this a couple times, and then essentially they repeated it, but wearing identical dive gear. And at that point, the fish were unable to determine them. So they went back to not knowing who to follow. So they went back. They went solo, and then they wore the same gear, and they did that. Which is strong evidence that the fish had associated the differences in dive gear and the colours with the individual person wearing them. Now, I want to point out here, some people will be like, oh, well, that's not, recognition. It's not like facial recognition or body recognition. But when you're diving, like humans, I also would use someone's fin colour or something to figure out who they are. You can't, when you're covered head to toe, it's very difficult to see.
The fish doesn't know that's not part of you.
Yeah, also that. They think that you just naturally have these blue things at the end of your body.
So to the fish, someone appeared and started feeding them and then duplicated.
Yes.
Well, someone appeared and started feeding them, and then that person lost the red part of their body. And they were able to figure that out. They were like, well, that's weird. And they were like, oh, God, all right, well, sure. This was taken as evidence of recognition. The authors did say that fish they think they learned to pay attention to subtler features like hair and hands because they'd observed them approaching their faces and scrutinizing their bodies like they were studying us, not the other way around. So I just thought this was really cute because they're like genuinely interested and interacting, coming up and interacting. Obviously they're getting fed, but that's how you can interact with wild species. But a lot of the commentary on this was like, oh wow, wasn't it crazy that fish are this intelligent? But the authors and myself, it's just not that surprising to me. Fish have incredibly complicated social structures and the way they communicate. They're much more social creatures than we give them credit for. And so to me, it's not that surprising that they would have this ability to identify individuals, even of other species, and sort of form these pseudo relationships with them and know who they are and be interested in the person. But if you're not spending your entire life learning about fish, it might be interesting. So I just thought it would be cool to show everyone that sometimes fish know you too. And if you scream and yell around a lot, maybe a not fish, a mammal, will ruin your popcorn stuff.
More subscribers. That was Peta. Peta was talking, our friendly neighbourhood of marine scientists, who couldn't be here this week, but that was a recording from the 26th of February. You tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max. We've got Issy. What do you got for us, Gabe?
This one goes out to you, Max. A vaccine has been approved for koala chlamydia.
Thank you.
Yep. Hang on, I've got the name here. Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority has approved a vaccine after 10 years of work for koala chlamydia, which in some areas is killing up to half of wild koala population. So it is actually genuinely quite a big deal. And this vaccine, they say, reduces likelihood of displaying symptoms and also reduced death in wild populations by at least 65%.
Right.
So quite a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it's quite an ordeal to get a vaccine developed and approved for a wild animal. There's the money and the sort of process is just not really there. It requires a lot of people just taking up a lot of this on their own. Terry Owen was quoted on this media release. That's how big of a deal this is, saying these trials involve vaccinating koalas in real-world conditions, enabling researchers to gather valuable data on the vaccine's potential benefits. And together we are turning the tide for koalas. Pretty cool. There's now a vaccine that can be used on wild populations of koalas to help vaccinate against chlamydia. And Max, that came out at University of Sunshine Coast as well as a couple of other institutions. And where else do you get news about koala chlamydia vaccines than the wonderful 4ZZZ radio?
Exactly. And if you want to keep us on air, you can subscribe to this wonderful station at 4ZZZ.org.au/support. If you're under 18, it's $25. If you're a pet, the thing we'll get in the newsletter this week.
I hope so.
With this shout out
for
the subscribing.
Yeah.
Pets, like your koala, $25. Are you allowed to have koala as a pet? Not really.
But
you could subscribe. If you have one in your backyard, you could subscribe on behalf
koala,
of that koala.
There you go. Yeah, cool. Concessions, $40. Full is $80. Passionate, $140. You get a T-shirt and all that sort of stuff. Super sub, you get your name written down the stairs in gold ink for $500. When are you going to be a super sub, Gabe? You reckon it's...
Oh, put me on the spot here, Max.
Yeah, cough it up.
That's it, yeah.
Whenever I can have a koala as a pet, I'll subscribe to my super sub.
Fair enough.
And Max, not only do you get... Oh, sorry. 1 minute glow. Excuse me. We're going to talk about our sub prize for this month.
Yeah, September sub prize.
Yes, it is our September sub prize. We have 2 Sea Legs Brewing mixed cartons, a hat and a cozy jumper from Sea Legs Brewing Co., which is an independent craft brewery located under the Story Bridge in Brisbane. So that is our September prize. You'll go into the running for that when you subscribe during the month of September.
Yeah. Simon goes into the running because Simon subscribed.
Yes.
He's from Salisbury East. So,
Simon subscribing from Salisbury for a splendid September sub prize.
Oh, all the S's.
You're welcome. Get me in the newsletter, please.
Hey Flynn, you've subscribed to 4ZZZ for the very first time this year. Thanks so much for supporting us and keeping community radio alive. And if you'd like to subscribe, you can, for as little as $20. So go ahead and be like Flynn. Take the plunge and subscribe today.
You tuned into 4ZZZ. The show is No Idea with me, Max. We've got Issy, we've got Gabe, and we've got Maximillian, so it can only be one thing.
Okay, it's time for the best part of the show. Loosely defined as science, yeah, you already know. Everybody listens to 4ZZZ just to hear us talking about what Butters just did. Subscriptions just keep rolling like the tires on a car. But something tells me that our science curves won't go far. But unlike an engine, I will keep you in suspension. We're all here to hear him talk, so let's give him attention. You're not ready for when he starts rapping. Gonna hand the mic to Max, and I'm not talking Van Stappen.
F1. It happened on the weekend. It was in Italy at the temple.
Full stop, job done.
Yep, that's been MotoRap.
Yeah,
I'm sure someone on the text line would appreciate that short and sweet MotoRap.
That's right, the new form MotoRap.
Yeah.
Just as fast as the race was.
It was at Monza, and would McLaren take the spoils? And sadly, no Australian anthem this week. If I was to play an anthem, it would be of Dutch origin. Does that give it away?
Oh, God.
Starting from pole, Max Verstappen ran a considered race, I'd like to say, from start to finish.
Well, not only that, I mean, the way he got pole is incredible as well.
Yeah.
Like, that it is the fastest lap of Formula One ever, just in terms of sheer, average speed.
Yeah, okay.
Incredible.
It was like 265k an hour or something? It was?
100%.
Yeah.
So he's taking that record. Who's he taking that off?
Probably Raikkonen.
Raikkonen, yeah, you're right. Raikkonen had it, and Juan Pablo had it before that.
Gotcha, yeah. Anyway, McLaren had their race within a race because they started from second and third. And then there were some team orders, and a multi-21 happened, if you know your Red Bull history.
Multi-21,
Seb. Multi-21.
The most passive-aggressive bottle of water I've ever seen in my life.
So, if you don't know what multi-21 was, back in the day when Mark Webber, who's the manager of Oscar Piastri, was racing against Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull team, Vettel was meant to relinquish his lead in the race and let Webber through.
It wasn't that. It was they were already in the position, right? Webber was ahead.
Yeah.
And then we've told Vettel he's going to stay and not attack. Turn down your engine. We want to preserve it.
Yes. Okay. And Vettel just ignored them.
Yeah, just ignored it. Turned it up and went racing.
And
fair enough, but you got to sometimes obey the team, and in that case, it was very clear that
And what's the story when
got done dirty?
When the Queen was alive, she asked about what the multi-21. Who did she ask?
Yeah, Christian Horner. Christian Horner got invited to Buckingham Palace for an event, and he found himself sat next to the Queen. The one question that she had on her mind was, what is this multi-21 business?
So fast forward to last weekend's race, and Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Oscar found himself in P2 or position 2 on the track because he came in early for a pit stop, and then Lando came in for his pit stop, but the pit stop ran over. It was like 3 seconds over than what it should have been. And
was it the front left wheel gun? Yeah.
And so Oscar took the lead within the McLaren camp. And he argued a bit, saying, I should be able to retain this because it's not my fault that Lando had a slow pit stop. But eventually, Oscar acquiesced and let Lando through. So the final result was how they qualified. So Max Verstappen first, Lando Norris second, and Oscar Piastri third.
It's going to be really interesting going forward. Again, as we say, multi-21 and all that, because that did have consequences later for Red Bull in that season.
It did.
It's going to be interesting sort of how these papaya rules fall out in the end, because let's say it does, go down to a knife's edge, like 21, and we're talking about this in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and they bring a safety car.
Correct, or like the positions are reversed, right? Like through no fault of his own, Oscar finds himself in P2 versus Lando's P1.
Yeah.
Is Lando going to be willing to swap those positions if it means conceding a championship? I just don't know. And that's the problem with these sort of, I guess, manufactured results to some extent.
It is. And McLaren's pretty happy because they've already pretty well assured of winning the Constructors' Championship. Where the money is, they get paid if they win the Constructors. There's nothing to do with where the drivers finish.
It's just the prestige.
So I think they'll
well, and a heck of a lot of marketing cash too. For
So I think they'll be free to race right to the death. So yeah. Anyway, we've got some side notes about Formula One.
Yes.
There's only 4 more races before Oscar Piastri equals the current record for the most consecutive race finishes.
Have we just jinxed it?
No.
We just jinxed it.
They say that the more you talk about it, the better. The record is currently held by Sir Lewis Hamilton on 48. So
That's pretty impressive.
Oscar's on 44 finishes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Honey Badger, Daniel Ricciardo,
Oh, I know.
has officially announced his retirement from all forms of motorsport. How long do you think that'll hold for? 5 years, maybe? He'll be back.
He will be back.
How old is he? 36, something like that? 33? I don't know.
36, yeah.
36.
It's a young age to retire.
Yeah, I think he'll start. When he turns 40, he'll say he'll have a reconsider that option, I reckon.
A real Nigel Mansell moment.
Mm.
No, I think it's good though that he's got that Ford ambassadorship now, right?
Yeah, the Raptor. He loves his
Yes.
Raptor. Anyway, Pierre Gasly, the Frenchman, has re-signed with the French team Alpine/Renault until 2028. Is
What's
Pierre...
the etymology behind re-signed and resigned?
Yes,
Being, like
there
the
you
dash
go.
being the complete opposite meaning of the word.
Yeah. Okay, maybe he has resigned. And finally, I got an email last night from the Formula One Australian group. Say tickets are on sale today. They go on sale for next year's Melbourne race at 12 p.m. lunchtime today. So get on it if you want to get your tickets. They're about $380 if you want to just have a 4-day pass.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, job done. Now this goes out to Pete. Any more on the Formula One? Oh, Pete just texted in. What's the timing? I'm going to talk about MotoGP, Pete. I feel like I'm hearing... This is Pete talking. I feel like I'm hearing the phrase papaya rules more than we heard the word unprecedented during COVID. There you go. Anyway,
It's truly unprecedented.
It is.
The papaya rules, man.
Anyway, it was in Spain MotoGP on the weekend. In a surprise turn, the Spaniard Alex Marquez beat home his more experienced older brother Marc Marquez, both riding Ducatis, by the way. And in third was a KTM rider, Bestiani. I can't say his first name. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Aussie Jack Miller finished 14th on his Yamaha, which earned him 2 points. So they get points all the way down to 15. And
That's awesome.
And Jack currently sits 17th with 54 points, while the championship leader, Marc Marquez, leads by 487 points to younger brother who has 305 points. So,
Wouldn't that suck to be the younger brother, though?
oh, yeah, I know. Well, look at the Schumachers, Ralph.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
all that. So.
It just happens that your brother's one of the most talented of all time. Like, of all the people in all the world.
Yeah, who I had to come up against. Gabe, anything on the MotoRap?
No, that's all.
Yep, I mean MotoGP.
No. That
All good?
looks like it's going to be a fun little finish to the ends of both seasons, F1 and MotoGP.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following the F2s as well. It's been good fun going in there.
Yeah.
The race at Monza was a bit chaotic. Lots of spins,
Yes.
lots of moves. It's always good fun watching drivers still in their sort of learning stages and just going, yeah, no, I can make this, and just take each other out. But it's
You're
been
talking
some
about
good
Sainz
racing
here.
in there too.
Yeah.
It's been some good racing in there too, and the Fornaroli is currently the leader, I believe, F2, and
Yes.
it looks like we're going to have another situation like we have had every year in the last few years, except for last year, where the winner of F2 may not have a seat in Formula One next year, or probably won't have a seat. So going to be, this constant issue of there not being enough seats for all of this talent coming through the pipeline.
Yeah.
And of course, the issue there is to encourage the F1 teams, the Formula 2 champion can't recontest Formula 2.
Yeah.
They're meant to be picked up. And yet this rule has not even encouraged the F1 teams in any way, shape, or form.
I see it as a good problem to have, though. Rather have talented drivers than
Yeah.
But it
Stroll.
sucks to see them on the sideline.
Yeah.
Stroll just catching strays here, man.
Anyway, no Formula One this weekend. You got? Oh, sorry, Issy, I haven't included
I have
you.
nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing to
To
submit.
add? Yeah. So no Formula One this weekend, but there is Sail GP, and it's in France. It's off Saint-Tropez, and we'll get to see Vettel's team, which is Team Germany, see how they go. But obviously we're going for Team Oz. And do I get to play the anthem if Team Oz wins in France?
It won't count towards your stats, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah. And Gabe, we've played it 7 times this year, so we're getting tantalisingly close to your 8 prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maxie said 9, Izzy said 10, and I said 12. And there's like probably 30 more chances or 12 more chances to play it with the sprint races. So
we really need him to pull a Rosberg. Just P2. Consistency.
And still win the championship.
There's also MotoGP this weekend, San Marino.
Yeah.
So if Jack Miller wins that, you can play the anthem as well, mate.
Oh, thanks for that.
Izzy, thanks for the vibes.
What do you got for us, Izzy?
As someone who makes the rounds on environmental Instagrams, Facebooks, I get my content from a variety of locations for science. I saw a lot of my favorite pages reposting this story that glass bottles contain more microplastics than plastic containers.
How can that be?
And, well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought, look, as an amateur science communicator, I know that when something sounds too good to be true, it typically is.
Yeah.
So, much like the myth that if you drink orange juice before taking your ADHD medications, it'll be less effective, sometimes science communication has its own myths and legends that come from not reading the source material and simply just being passed down almost old school through word of mouth or republications. So I wanted to have a look at this story.
Yeah.
And I had to jump through various publications to find where it was listed, when it was listed. All it said was released in 2025. And I'm like, that's
not on
great.
the Pepsi website?
Not on not on Big Cola's websites or anything like that. So I was like, this is smelling a little fishy.
Yeah.
So I finally found it.
Yeah.
Published in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis. This is a fantastic journal, by the way, if you ever want to look into your individual food habits, such as they did an analysis on yerba mate, which is a type of tea, the composition of dragon fruits, and like all these. They're super interesting journal, which made me so surprised when no one was publishing where it was from. It is called Microplastic Contaminations in a Set of Beverages Sold in France. Short and sweet. And it was conducted by the ANSES, which is the French Agency for Food, Environment and Occupational Health and Safety. So keep that in mind. This isn't a university-led per se. I'm sure there is a university connected to it, but this was published through more of an agency. This journal was released in the May issue 2025. But they used samples purchased in June 2023. They chose 6 samples for all references, which was water, beer, wine, soft drinks like cola, tea, and lemonade. These samples were then degassed to prevent degradation of the glass fiber filter that they used for analysis. So they were opened, aluminum foil was placed on top of the bottleneck for a week, and then the contents were magnetically stirred for an hour at 100 RPM at room temperature to prepare these samples for evaluation. Plastic bottle labels were removed and all were cleaned with pressurized air before being put in the Luminaire flow hood, which is such a sick piece of equipment. They used a glass fiber filter to filter through the liquid and a 2% sodium hypochlorite solution to lighten the visibility, except for water and lemonade samples, which were already pretty clear. They then allowed them to dry in petri dishes at room temperature before making observations. And they found the following. Soft drinks in glass bottles contain 30 particles per litre. Lemonade was about 40 particles of microplastics per litre. Beer contained 60. Glass bottled water fared better with 45 particles per litre. Plastic bottled water had the lowest concentration of microplastics, which was surprising for me, 1.6 particles per litre. And wine had few microplastics even with glass bottles and caps. So, of course, glass contamination was found higher than expected, and this is the reason why a lot of media organizations have picked up this article, and they found it was the microplastics found in the paint of the caps that were coated with alkyd thermosetting resin or PES/PET-based paint. So they retested with new caps and clean bottles with water that revealed a microplastic presence identical to the initial test. So even when retesting, they found that it was almost the exact same. They concluded that with rinsing, it reduced the microplastics presence to about a third. So cleaning would be essential to minimizing contamination of microplastics in liquid, which is such an interesting niche observation to find through this study. Now, of course, this is an interesting conclusion, but this is a regional study.
Yeah.
So it was only based in France. And when I was looking at the media publications for this, it was almost like a wide-sweeping generalization that every country, glass bottles have more microplastics than plastic bottles. So this is why I wanted to kind of bring it up today, to just give a gentle reminder that there are numerous studies about microplastic exposures in your own country. Australia has a variety of them. Whilst this is a niche one looking at specific samples, you can't apply one country's kind of conclusions to another country. So I just want to keep, as we kind of heading, as a lot of people are picking up science communication and reading through many articles, just remember that just because it applies to one country, it doesn't apply to all. So fact check your fact checkers, because sometimes even the best science communicators may be overlooking some of the most important science, which is in your study methods. So that's my little tidbit. I think I'm in the depths of university at the moment, so this is why it came forth, because I've had to analyze all sorts of academic sources. So when this came up, I went, I bet that this is such a niche topic for France that is just being generally applied for all other countries. So that's my little rant for today.
So good. It's the microplastic stuff in particular. There's all sorts of weird bits of methodology and reporting going on across that research, and there's which is kind of bizarre, because there's like the stuff that is true and reported on accurately is kind of equally as horrifying as some of the stuff that is exaggerated or overgeneralized, like you say. So it's really hard to pick what's true and what's not. Like the microplastics are in the deepest parts of the ocean. That's crazy. But there's also reports that we eat a credit card a week, which is just substantiated.
So I think
like that was just a bad study methodology. And they were picking up on other stuff that was not microplastics.
Yeah, in the conclusion, they discussed that it is hard to have like a standardized way of measuring microplastics. But we have the particles per liter, or like the kind of smaller level analysis, but it is like if you're comparing soft drinks to the ocean, it's going to be kind of hard to apply to have a standard methodology for it. Additionally, I wanted to touch base. We talked about a topic a few years ago. I think I did the testicles, microplastics in testicles. That was a sample from, I think, 2017, and it was only a sample of 5. But media articles picked it up, and of course, science communication. It was fun. It was interesting. But it's not exactly the most relevant, or it's not the most accurate as people are saying. So, yeah, this is just your friendly neighborhood reminder to fact check your fact checkers, because sometimes it is too good to be true.
Maybe Eco Radio can follow up on this study.
I'm sure that, and everyone on our text line as well would love to follow up on that.
You can fact check us on any time, 0420626733, especially Max. Fact check Max more.
Fact check, yeah. Get your APA references out, come on.
What is the independent variable that makes no idea tick? That's what I want to know.
What do you got for us, Gabe?
Phone bans in schools. Let's talk a bit about this.
This is topical.
Alpha, come on, let's do it.
Let's go. Yeah. Should we just say the text line now? 0420626733.
Well, they won't be able to contact us, so...
Yeah, can't hear from the school kids.
And they want their iPads back.
Oh, God. Okay, so start with the basics. So smartphone ownership is more than 90% in adolescents in Australia, according to a 2021 study, which also found that these adolescents are spending an average of 5 hours per day online. If that's the real stat, then those are some rookie numbers that they're pulling. I know I go way over that.
That's right.
I guess it's a bit different if you're working on a laptop as well, isn't it? If you sort of factor out work, and hopefully the kids, aren't online the whole time they're at school, 5 hours per day, it's a lot of time.
And then they can't go home and start gaming. So plenty of screen time.
Yeah, I mean, I do that too, Max. So I'm not knocking it. So to address negative effects of mobile phones in schools, in 2023, the South Australian government announced a policy called Off and Away, mandates all phone use restricted in public secondary schools. So you can't use mobile phones or smartwatches for the entirety of the school day and during off-site school activities. So they have a various number of reasons why they're doing that, but that's a pretty standard looking ban, but it's quite expansive, right? Like it's nothing, you can't use it at recess, you can't use it at lunch, you can't use it if you're at the like track and field day or whatever. It's all banned. And similar bans are in the US, Canada, France, Sweden, Spain, around the world, and in Queensland, which has a pretty similar policy which says all state schools must keep all state school students must keep phones switched off and away for the day is their little line during school hours. So there's exceptions in that for people who meet certain criteria. It doesn't apply to personal or school-owned devices like the iPads, tablets or laptops that are approved for education use, but it does apply to phones and wearables like smartwatches and handheld devices. So all of those technically not allowed. So two papers have come out this year that have looked into effects of these smartphone bans in South Australian schools. They both come out of Flinders University, QS ranking.
Oh, God.
82.
90?
387.
Damn.
You have the University of South Australia in your heads. That merged with uni.
Oh, really?
Okay,
That's around
cool.
80. Yeah. The first study compared student mental health between schools with and without bans before and after the South Australia statewide ban was introduced. And it found a clear link between phone bans and lower levels of psychological distress, including reduced symptoms of anxiety and depression. Students also reported fewer negative effects tied to their problematic phone use, such as fear of missing out, risky behaviour, and social comparison. All sounds pretty good. This next one is a really big study looking for student feedback. So this is the more recent study, and they've taken about 7,000 open-ended survey answers completed by more than 1,500 students from 5 schools across South Australia. They were looking at like 70,000 words in those responses that they were analysing, and they had a lot of stuff that was reported. I'm going to skim to some of the highlights. So there was a report of students felt less independent and trustworthy in the negative sort of column of this. They felt like they lost access to digital learning tools, and they felt difficulties in regulating emotional distress without phones. But in the positive column, face-to-face social interaction was better, according to the students. Personal health and safety was reported to be better, and classroom engagement was reported to be better. And some students expressed a desire for some additional support around this, like education.
Is this self-reporting? What is this?
Yeah. So it's surveys to students, and the students self-report stuff.
Yeah, not the teachers saying, "Oh, my class is way better now."
No, this is from the students.
Yeah.
They're saying that the positives are stronger social connections, improved classroom focus, better health and safety from things like more exercise, improved mood, less cyberbullying, less conflict. So those are the sort of the highlights. There's in the actual paper itself, there's all these quotes from the students, which are really interesting. We're not going to be able to get to most of them, but really interesting to have a read of this sort of stuff, saying, people talk about the positives of phones, like feeling like they can contact family and friends when they're scared and anxious at school, or when they're left out. People saying they sort of use their phones as an escape when things are getting a bit much or stressful or anxious, or if you need to call someone, family, to talk to them about personal stuff. And then there's the utility and convenience as well, like just even simple things about taking photos of the whiteboard to keep up with notes, and little bits of productivity apps and those sorts of things that people use. Like phones are a big part of our lives. Like that study in 2021 found that was a 5-hour average per day for adolescents in Australia using their phones. You develop techniques that, like, you build it into your life. So when you take that away, there's going to be, especially for people who are used to having their phones in the classroom, there's going to be negative effects. And there's also the social stuff. Some people felt like they were sort of cut out of social situations because they couldn't act because it was happening through the phones. They felt cut out. Then there were the other negatives around people feeling like it wasn't enforced fairly or enforced differently across different classrooms. It's like another administrative burden on teachers if they have to follow a mandated phone rule across the whole state, and so there's going to be cracks in that just by nature. And so some students felt like it was unfair the way it was enforced across different classrooms and across different people. But overall, the researchers said the positives seem to outweigh the negatives. And they had some other stuff in there about maybe there should be more of a focus on the education aspect and things, which does tend to be a fallback sometimes in these studies. There's you use like the idea of education as a tool that keeps everyone happy, but it's hard to find what that means in practice and how it actually leads to results. And the big negative that people seem to be taking away, that the students seem to be taking away, was that loss of independence just feeling like self-doubt, I guess, because some of the students that have read without the phone, some of the quotes I read from students were like, in grade 11 and grade 12, these kids are basically adults. And it's kind of a bit weird to say you can't use your phone, right? So that's what they're saying. It's a bit of loss of autonomy. That was the wording they used with this ban, especially with how strict it is. It's like a flat-out ban every moment you're at school. Because when I was at school, the school had a policy of you'd get your head ripped off if you had it open in class, but you could use it at recess and lunch. You could use it, in those sorts of circumstances. You could use it between classes to send a quick text or something like that. So I think the overall very generalized takeaway from this was that it seems to be some sort of control on phones seems to be good. Maybe it needs some tweaking in how it works
for the older
in practice.
students, I think.
Yeah.
And it'll be really interesting, I think, for the older students in particular. And I think it'll be really interesting to track this as students who don't have it in their earlier secondary school don't get used to it. So that it's the norm to not have the phone around more in the classroom. And then, it's not
a bit like
more like something's been taken away. It's
wearing
what you get
hats.
used to.
It's a bit like that. We never wore hats, and then now it's sort of mandatory.
Yeah. Well, I made such a hard yes, because when I was in high school, I was in year 11 2020, year 12 2021. So we had firm phone policies until COVID came, and they're all kind of threw out the window because obviously we needed to keep in contact with family. But also at those points, a lot of us in year 11 and 12 had either part-time or casual jobs. So the reason why we'd be on our phone is for shift changes or for keeping up with rosters and things like that. So at least for me, organising school strike rallies and things like that, I was on my phone as well, and we just had a hard locker policy. So it is really interesting to hear of 5 years out from COVID now, where we aren't as that screen time. My screen time basically blew up because I was on online school and also keeping up with friends online. So now that kind of trickling down to shorter screen times, less kind of screen time in general at school, it is really interesting to hear that. And I would be interested to hear teachers' perspectives as well, whether students are calmer or whether or not the lack of phone has exacerbated other behavioural issues. So that's super interesting to hear, and especially when it's such a topical discussion. Rumour has it December is the social media ban in Oz. That might be completely wrong. Yeah. So super interesting studies to come out at this current moment. So thanks for that, Gabe.
Overall, they say valuable digital break comes from this sort of stuff, but they also think it should be paired with broader strategies like digital literacy, mental health programs, and preparing young people for an increasingly digital world. The iPad generation criticisms there.
Gen Alpha.
They found that babies and toddlers exposed to television or video viewing may be more likely to exhibit atypical sensory behaviours, like being disengaged, disinterested in activities, seeking more intense stimulation in the environment. A lot of these things that we think of over the airwaves. We have a small little
They're coming
base.
to get you, Gabe.
They are coming to get me.
All those iPad kids.
They found your lair.
They want their iPads back.
Yeah. You tune into 4ZZZ. The show is No Idea. Me, Max, Issy, Gabe. No Idea, Space News. Digital twins. We know about digital twins. It's sort of like a computer representation of a physical thing. And digital twins have been used in sailing to prototype different hull designs for transport logistics and predictive maintenance of infrastructure. Now, companies Black Sky and Issy have come together to help create a digital twin of Earth named Project Orbion. And through Project Orbion, the companies are working together to establish standards for sharing and communicating geospatial data. The first test for Project Orbion will be providing 3D scanning and simulation technology to the United States Coast Guard Aviation Training Center. Scientists have announced that Mars has an interior structure similar to Earth's. Results from NASA's InSight mission suggest that the red planet has a solid inner core surrounded by a liquid outer core, potentially resolving a long-standing mystery. The findings, which have been published in Nature, Gabe's favourite journal, have important implications for our understanding of how Mars evolved. For this study, the scientists achieved their result through a careful selection, I call it cherry picking, of specific seismic event types at a certain distance from InSight. They also employ some novel data analysis techniques to get a weak signal out of the instrument noise. The findings have yet to be peer reviewed. Space age researchers from the University of California, San Diego, Sanford Stem Cell Institute have discovered that spaceflight accelerates the aging of human stem cells. The findings show that cells lost some of their ability to make healthy new cells while becoming more prone to DNA damage, and showed signs of faster aging at the ends of their chromosomes after spaceflight. It should be noted many of these changes reversed or returned to normal after returning to Earth. The study did identify some persistent changes, such as increased numbers of shorter DNA strings and disruptions in gene expression, which they think could be relevant for longer space missions as we travel to the Moon and Mars and stay there. And finally, something from Jack, the manager of 4ZZZ. Ireland's first satellite, called EarSat number 1, has completed its mission orbiting Earth. The CubeSat, which was built and launched by students at University College in Dublin, EarSat 1 was launched into space in 2023. It carried 3 onboard payloads for its low Earth orbit mission, which conducted 3 experiments managed by students and staff at Mission Control at USCD. During the mission, the gamma ray model, how good is that? The gamma ray module detected 10 cosmic gamma ray bursts and 2 solar flares, contributing to scientific knowledge and understanding about the universe. The wave-based control module tested and validated a novel control system for advanced satellite pointing in space, so like a GPS type thing. And the EN Bio module was a materials testing platform to test the performance of thermal management coatings in low Earth orbit for the first time. Over the course of the project, the EarSat 1 team published 24 academic journal and conference papers sharing the results of the research and technology developments. That's it for space news, unless everyone else has got any more space news.
No, I think you covered it.
You want to sign us out, Gabe?
Can do. That is all we have time for. This show was brought to you by the word Zenoparous and all of the people who subscribe to 4ZZZ and keep us on air. We'll be back in your ears next week. Between now and then, marvel at some worker ants, don't let the glass bottle fear-mongering win, and free up some space on your phone for the incoming gigapixel videos. Is that what it was, Max? Gigapixels?
Gigapixels. Something
like that. Listen back to all those stories in our other shows.
You can
on
save
the
it as a
website.
gift, though. So it's
You can listen back to all those stories and all of our other shows on the website 4ZZZ.org.au, or our podcast, just search up No Idea. That's No with a K.
That's it for No Idea this week. We'll speak to you next week. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.
Hiya.
I'm a goddamn marvel of modern science.